can you outline the War Powers Resolution briefly and give a simplified explanation in conjunction with this article? So from that article that I just read, so the War Powers Resolution, also called the War Powers Act, is a U.S. federal law passed in 1973 over President Nixon's veto in response to the Vietnam War. Its main goal is to restore the balance between Congress and the president on decisions about using military force abroad, as the Constitution gives Congress the power to declare war, which is Article 1, while the president, commander-in-chief. Okay? So let's just take a step back from that. Again, this is looking at military force, not war. And I hear a lot of people, it's war, it's war, it's war. War is something completely different than what he's doing now, because Congress is not involved. So stop calling it a war. It's a conflict that could lead to war, but we're still in the conflict stage. Because if he goes to war without Congress, that's impeachable. They just voted that it's not a war. So what are we doing? So in simplified terms, the president must consult with Congress in every possible instance before introducing U.S. armed forces into hostiles, which he did. The president must notify Congress in writing within 48 hours of committing forces to hostiles or situations where hostiles are imminent, right? Hostilities, sorry. Unless Congress declares war or passes specific authorization, like an authorization for use of military force, the forces must be withdrawn after 60 days, with possible 30-day extension for safe withdrawal if the president certifies he needs it. This creates a clock to prevent prolonged, unauthorized military engagements and forces Congress to actively approve or stop them. We are not at war. Stop saying it's that, because it's not. I need everybody to calm down. Yes, this is a conflict. Yes, Israel wants regime change for Iran. President Trump is like, hey, you've got the freedom to choose now. Now, if Israel tries to force regime change, that's not the United States. Two different things going on. So in practice, presidents from both parties have often interpreted their authority broadly, claiming actions were defensive or limited, and Congress has rarely enforced the full 60-day cutoff strictly. The law aims to ensure collective judgment rather than unilateral presidential wars. Regarding the article from all sides, it covers a recent congressional vote on a specific war powers resolution directed at the ongoing U.S. military conflict with Iran under President Trump. This was a concurrent resolution, not the 1973 law itself, that sought to invoke mechanisms of the 1973 War Powers Resolution to require congressional approval for continuing U.S. military operations, hostilities in Iran, and potentially direct withdrawal of forces absent such approval. So the resolution was rejected in both chambers. Then it failed, 47-53, mostly party line vote, right? House failed 212-219. Supporters, largely Democrats plus a few Republicans, argued it was essential to reassert Congress's constitutional war powers, prevent unchecked escalation, and address public opposition, right? The polls showed majority disapproval of Trump's handling and against military action in Iran. They highlighted the administration's unclear messaging on the war's purpose, timeline, and whether the U.S. was formally at war. That's the question. Is this formally war or not? Because you still need congressional approval to be formally at war. Now, opponents, mostly Republicans, contended that the president already has sufficient authority under the 1973 War Powers Resolution for such actions similar to prior presidents, and that the measure would impose undue shackles on military strategy. So the rejection allowed the conflict to continue without new congressional restrictions or required authorization at that point. The article notes it is a victory for Trump with varied media framing, right? Right leaning sources celebrated fewer limits, center sources called it symbolic, and left leaning ones stressed risk to troops and the region. The administration was reportedly preparing major funding requests to sustain operations. So, in short, the 1973 law sets rules to limit unilateral presidential wars, but this 2026 vote shows Congress, with Republican majorities control, chose not to enforce those limits in Iran's case, letting executive military action proceed. So we are not at war. Stop. It's like, he's like, there's a difference between a conflict and a war. Now, I want to share a video from Hakeem Jeffries and him being actually asked a question on this very topic.
President Obama didn't need congressional approval to bomb Libya. Now House Democrats say President Trump needs that approval to bomb Iran. What's the difference?
Here is Fox's Bill Maloogian asking Timu Obama, Hakeem Jeffries, about Democrats flip-flopping when it comes to congressional approval.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. Back in 2011, Nancy Pelosi said that then President Obama didn't need congressional approval to bomb Libya. Now House Democrats say President Trump needs that approval to bomb Iran. What's the difference?
Well, obviously, Libya and the circumstances connected to that were very different than the circumstance that we face in Iran right now. I mean, I don't even understand the genesis or basis of that question, not suggesting that you're not asking it in good faith.
Libya went on for 7 months.
As I've indicated, first of all, it was not in Congress at the time. So we're dealing with what we're dealing with right now, which is a catastrophic, endless war, as Donald Trump has characterized it, without any justification that there was going to be a preeminent assault or attack on the United States of America, either in our homeland or as it relates to our interests in the Middle East. The administration is not even pretending like they have intelligence or information at this point, publicly. And certainly there's been nothing that has been presented to us privately to justify a preemptive strike of this nature that has triggered an all-out war in the Middle East. And by the way, Donald Trump is the one who said in the aftermath of the 12-day war that Iran's nuclear program has been completely and totally obliterated. Not my words, his words. So was he lying to the American people then, or is he lying now?
So, Madam Speaker, or Madam Leader, you're saying that the president did not need authorization initially and still does not need any authorization from Congress on Libya?
Yes.
Thank you both.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, and this is why they don't want a free internet. They don't want you to remember those clips. And I love Hakeem Jeffries. Well, I wasn't there, so I don't know. Well, what are your principles? What are your principles? Simple as that. Great question by Maloogian. That's a great job right there. They know damn well the president's allowed to do this, and if it was their president doing it. And then he's also, what did he say? It's a disastrous and endless war. We're 4 days into this thing. You just heard what Hegseth said. It's going unbelievably well. That doesn't mean some things can't go sideways. But the problem is you guys don't like America very much. You don't like American values very much. You don't want us to realize that we can win again, that we can exert power again, that we can be excited about our country again, that we can actually help the world. You don't want any of that, unfortunately.
That's an interesting take, right? You know, Hakeem Jeffries saying what he said. Because I just read, look, this is not a war, this is a conflict. The question is, does this conflict in preemptive strikes, will it lead to war? That's one question, right? Will it lead to an endless war? And will it create a vacuum as far as who's going to be the next person that steps up into leadership? What happens? Those are the questions that need to be answered. And the messaging has not been the greatest, right? But then again, we know we're all under propaganda. And I find it hysterical that the media is running around like, oh my gosh, I can't. You guys lie to us all the time. I think the American people, unfortunately, we're kind of used to it. We're like, okay, they're lying again, so something's going to shake loose, right? Something's going to shake loose. It has to, because all y'all do is lie to everyone, okay? Now I want to play this next video from Valuetainment. It's kind of funny. I'm like jumping around in my own notes, but just trying to keep kind of a good mental order going. But let's just check out his take on what's happening with this conflict.
Of MBS being interviewed where she asks him about Khamenei. Have you guys ever seen this clip? Here's a clip of MBS being interviewed, and she asks and makes a comment. She says, wait a minute, is this really how you view Khamenei? Look what he says about Khamenei. Go ahead, Rob.
Seen that you called the Ayatollah Khamenei the new Hitler of the Middle East.
Absolutely.
Why?
Because he wants to expand. He wants to create his own project in the Middle East, very much like Hitler, who wanted to expand at the time. Many countries around the world and in Europe did not realize how dangerous Hitler was until what happened happened. I don't want to see the same events happening in the Middle East.
Does Saudi Arabia need nuclear weapons to counter Iran?
Saudi Arabia does not want to acquire any nuclear bomb. But without a doubt, if Iran developed a nuclear bomb, we will follow suit as soon as possible.
Seen that you called.
It's crazy when you think about it, because Saudi, pre-79, had a decent relationship with Iran under Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi. And now, who knows them better? Who knows Khamenei better? Who knows the IRGC better? Social media influencers, mainstream media folks, or MBS?
Right.
Who do you think knows them better? Of course a guy like this does. So why do you think they're sitting there saying they're not allies? We're not working with them. We're not going to. And by the way, FYI, just so everybody knows, this is the part that for someone said, well, you don't even know. It's because of this. He's bought. He's this. It's a business deal. It's that deal. By the way, if Iran is set free and the sanctions are lifted and they can do business with the world, Saudi takes a hit from business because there's a new competitor in town. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Now you have a massive oil supplier that can sell to everybody. You think Saudi wants Iran, like, economically? They're now, and so imagine if Iran opens up, it becomes free, they start building towers, they start doing concerts, they start doing events. You know, people start going there for vacation like they used to in the 70s, way before Dubai. What does that do to Saudi? That's a new competitor. Why would he want the regime to fall? He wouldn't want the regime to fall. Yet he still does. Yet they're still supporting. Why are they still supporting? So there's a lot of questions that comes up when you think about what's going on there. But what are your thoughts when you see what MBS said about Khamenei?
Survival. It's, like you said, I mean, Saudi Arabia doesn't lose everything, but they lose quite a bit with Iran being a functioning state and a competitor. However, survival comes first. And he understands the threat more than anybody else does because he's got to live next door to them. He's seen it up close and personal. I mean, we've seen it before. So it really is a matter of this is just way too friggin' dangerous to just sit here and do nothing. And as Mark showed, that chart was absolutely fantastic, by the way, because it actually does put everything into the right context.
Yeah.
Everybody said, we got to do this and we got to do this now, because if we wait any longer, it gets to the point where action becomes catastrophic.
I think a bigger piece that has to be taken into consideration is that a lot of us, sit here and think about this from a rational mindset.
Yeah.
And so the whole thought during the Cold War, Jeff referenced Cold War 2.0, but in the Cold War, it was mutually assured destruction. It was rational thought. If you can kill me and I can kill you, then we have a standoff and we have peace. But that only works with a rational actor. When you have an ideological actor whose actual goal is to die in war, they would rather die in war.
Take as many people with them as they can.
Then it changes the whole thing, and you have to take that into consideration.
That's a
you're
good
so
point.
right, because they do not have a constitution or something they want to stand on. They have a suicide pact with an